It is not easy to determine the nature of music, or why anyone should have a knowledge of it. The intelligence consists not only in the knowledge, but also in the skill to apply the knowledge into practice. Art completes what nature cannot bring to finish. The artist gives us knowledge of nature's unrealized ends. For imitation is natural to man from his infancy. Man differs from other animals particularly in this, that he is imitative, and acquires his rudiments of knowledge in this way. Besides, the delight in it is universal. It is not easy to determine the nature of music, or why anyone should have a knowledge of it. There is only one good, knowledge; there is only one evil, ignorance. Intuition is the source of scientific knowledge. In practical matters, the end is not mere speculative knowledge of what is to be done, but rather the doing of it. It is not enough to know about virtue, then, but we must endeavor to possess it, and to use it, or to take any other steps that may make. The knowledge of the soul admittedly contributes greatly to the advance of truth in general, and, above all, to our understanding of nature, for the soul is in some sense the principle of animal life. A right election can only be made by those who have knowledge. Metaphysics involves intuitive knowledge of improvable starting points, concepts, and truth, and demonstrative knowledge of what follows from them. Art is a higher type of knowledge than experience. To attain any assured knowledge about the soul is one of the most difficult things in the world. It is this simplicity that makes the uneducated more effective than the educated. When addressing popular audiences makes them, as the poets tell us, charm the crowd's ears more finely. Educated men lay down broad, general principles. Uneducated men argue from common knowledge, and draw obvious conclusions. At first, he who invented any art that went beyond the common perceptions of man was naturally admired by men, not only because there was something useful in the inventions, but because he was thought wise and superior to the rest. But as more arts were invented, and some were directed to the necessities of life, others to its recreation, the inventors of the latter were always regarded as wiser than the inventors of the former, because their branches of knowledge did not aim at utility. In all disciplines in which there is systematic knowledge of things with principles, causes, or elements, it arises from a grasp of those. We think we have knowledge of a thing when we have found its primary causes and principles, and followed it back to its elements clearly. Then, systematic knowledge of nature must start with an attempt to settle questions about principles. To be acceptable as scientific knowledge, a truth must be a deduction from other truths. If there is some end of the things we do, which we desire for its own sake, clearly this must be the good. Will not knowledge of it, then, have a great influence on life? Shall we not, like archers who have a mark to aim at, be more likely to hit upon what we should? If so, we must try an outline at least to determine what it is. In the case of some people, not even if we had the most accurate scientific knowledge, would it be easy to persuade them were we to address them through the medium of that knowledge. For a scientific discourse, it is the privilege of education to appreciate, and it is impossible that this should extend to the multitude. The angel is free because of his knowledge, the beast because of his ignorance, between the two remains the Son of Man to struggle. It is not easy to determine the nature of music, or why anyone should have a knowledge of it. Rhetoric is the counterpart of logic, since both are conversant with subjects of such a nature as it is the business of all to have a certain knowledge of, and which belong to no distinct science, wherefore all men in some way participate of both, since all, to a certain extent, attempt as well to sift as to maintain an argument, as well to defend themselves as to impeach.